Welcome to a deeper conversation about something many people silently carry but rarely question: the need to be perfect. On the surface, it looks like discipline, ambition, or high standards. It earns praise, opens doors, and often becomes part of your identity. But beneath that polished exterior, there's often something far more complex at work. A nervous system that learned early on that mistakes were not safe. This is where we begin to shift the narrative. Perfectionism is not simply a personality trait. It is often a learned survival response. It is the brain's way of creating control in environments where control once felt uncertain or unstable. When you understand this, the conversation changes. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" you begin to ask, "What was this protecting me from?" In early environments, especially those marked by inconsistency, high expectations, or emotional unpredictability, the brain adapts quickly. It starts scanning for patterns. What leads to approval? What leads to tension? What leads to withdrawal or conflict? Over time, it builds a system designed to minimize risk. If doing things perfectly reduces negative outcomes, then perfection becomes the strategy. This is what can be described as invisible armor. It is not obvious because it often leads to success. You perform well, you meet expectations, you avoid criticism, but the cost is internal. The system remains on alert. Every task becomes more than just a task, it becomes a test. Every mistake feels amplified, not because of the mistake itself, but because of what it once represented. Hypervigilance plays a key role in this pattern. The brain is constantly scanning for potential errors, not out of curiosity, but out of protection. It is trying to prevent a negative outcome before it happens. This creates a state where relaxation is difficult. Even in calm environments, the system does not fully switch off because it has been trained to anticipate. For many, this pattern is reinforced by early experiences where outcomes were not predictable. Inconsistent responses from authority figures, shifting expectations, or environments where emotional reactions were intense can create a sense that safety depends on performance. The child learns that being good, correct, or perfect reduces the chance of conflict or withdrawal. This leads to what can be called a quiet emergency. On the surface, everything may appear stable, but internally, there is a constant calculation happening. If I get this wrong, what will happen? The stakes feel high, even in situations that are objectively low risk. This is not a conscious thought process. It is automatic. In some cases, being labeled as gifted or high-achieving can add another layer. Praise becomes tied to performance. Success becomes expected. The child may begin to associate their value with their output. This creates pressure, not only to succeed, but to maintain that success consistently. Over time, this reinforces the idea that mistakes are not just setbacks, but threats to identity. As the person grows, the environment changes, but the internal system often does not. The nervous system continues to operate based on past conditions. This is why starting new tasks can feel overwhelming. Even when there is no immediate consequence for failure, the body reacts as if the stakes are still high. This is where the concept of the freeze response becomes relevant. When the brain perceives a situation as high risk, it can trigger a state where action feels blocked. You may want to start, but you feel stuck. This is not laziness or lack of discipline. It is a protective mechanism. The system is trying to avoid a perceived threat by preventing movement. Traditional productivity strategies often fail in this context because they address behavior, not the underlying state. Time management tools, schedules, and external systems assume that the barrier is organization. But when the issue is rooted in nervous system regulation, those tools can add pressure without resolving the core problem. Physical sensations often provide clues to what is happening. Tightness in the shoulders, shallow breathing, a sense of pressure in the chest, or a constant feeling of tension during work are all indicators that the body is not in a relaxed state. These are not random, they are part of the same pattern. At the same time, society often reinforces perfectionism. High output, constant productivity, and visible success are rewarded. The hustle mindset is praised. This can make it difficult to question the pattern because it appears to be working. But the internal cost accumulates. Burnout, anxiety, and a persistent sense of pressure are common outcomes. It is important to distinguish between healthy striving and compulsive perfectionism. Healthy striving is flexible. It allows for mistakes, adapts to feedback, and does not tie self-worth to outcomes. Compulsive perfectionism is rigid. It demands consistency at all costs and treats mistakes as unacceptable. One of the less obvious effects of perfectionism is its impact on creativity. When the cost of failure is perceived as high, experimentation decreases. You become less willing to take risks, try new approaches, or explore uncertain paths. This limits growth, even if performance remains high in familiar areas. The process of change begins with awareness. Recognizing that perfectionism is a response, not an identity, creates space for adjustment. It allows you to separate what you do from why you do it. This is not about eliminating standards, but about changing the relationship with them. Rewiring this pattern requires working with the body, not just the mind. The nervous system needs to learn that it is safe to operate differently. This is where small, consistent actions become important. Large changes can feel threatening, but small adjustments are more manageable. One approach is introducing controlled imperfection. This might involve intentionally leaving a task slightly unfinished, sharing work before it feels perfect, or allowing minor mistakes to remain uncorrected. These actions send a signal to the brain that the feared outcome does not occur. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. The urge to correct, fix, or perfect will be strong. But with repetition, the intensity of that urge decreases. The system begins to update its expectations. It learns that safety does not depend on perfection. Breathing and grounding techniques also play a role. Slow, controlled breathing can signal to the nervous system that it is safe to relax. Physical grounding, such as feeling your feet on the floor or focusing on sensory input, can bring attention back to the present moment, reducing the influence of past patterns. Shifting focus from external validation to internal safety is another key step. Instead of asking, "Is this good enough for others?" you begin to ask, "Does this feel safe for me to release as it is?" This changes the reference point. It moves from external judgment to internal regulation. Over time, this creates a different experience of work and life. Tasks feel less threatening. Starting becomes easier. The need to control every detail decreases. This does not reduce quality. It often improves it by allowing more flexibility and creativity. The goal is not to eliminate effort or ambition, but to remove the fear that drives it. When effort is no longer tied to survival, it becomes more sustainable. You can engage fully without the constant pressure of needing to avoid failure at all costs. This shift also affects how you relate to yourself. Self-criticism often softens. The internal dialogue becomes less harsh. Mistakes are seen as part of the process rather than evidence of inadequacy. This creates a more stable internal environment. Thank you for being part of MindCare's self-care. Continue to explore the patterns that shaped you, not with judgment, but with understanding. Because what once protected you does not have to control you. And when your mind feels safe, your potential is no longer driven by fear, but guided by clarity.